Since I was a child, I told people that I was going to be a different kind of doctor. I decided I wanted to be a doctor that made people healthier. So, I thought about what kind of specialty could I have. I chose rehabilitation as kind of a non-surgical sports medicine. And I started looking at how do we determine how healthy people were. Some people have more health than others, and we wanted to be able to measure that. As we started to measure that, then we started to say, well, how do we improve that? And that's where PACE came in. It's been wonderfully self-actualizing for me to see that all come around full circle. We now have tens of thousands of people doing PACE that we can prove is doing something more than just preventing disease. It's improving their health, and you can see it in these people. They come to life. They get more animated. They look younger. They tell us that they feel better than they felt since they were teenagers, and this is not the effect that you get from going to the gym and lifting weights. You can't get that from aerobics or cardio. Those people look haggard and run down, where the PACE people, I love to see them in follow-up because they're happy and they're grateful and they thank me about the changes that they're feeling. Cardio is actually a shortened term for cardiovascular endurance exercise. What you do with cardio is you're building endurance. You can go for a long duration at a low level of exertion. It turns out that that's not what we needed in the modern world to recondition our hearts. That your heart is a muscle and your heart needs capacity. It needs to be strong, but you can't build capacity and endurance at the same time. That's trying to move in opposite directions. So if what we want to do is we want to build capacity, you have to keep the duration short. So cardiovascular endurance exercise is not all the exertion that your heart needs. It's like if you were to try to build muscle by doing a very low exertion, like a half-pound weight, that you then work with for an hour on end. Everyone knows that wouldn't build muscle. Your heart is also a muscle. If you want to build capacity, then you have to give higher exertion for a shorter period of time. Kind of the opposite of what we get with cardio. When we came to the conclusion that what we need is higher intensity in short little bursts, we started to think about, yeah, but how? How do you get people to do that? How do you take deconditioned people and have them do a higher intensity? The trick that we found to solve that problem was really in the progressive element. That what we do is we make it easy at first. You start at whatever level of exertion is easy for you. But the trick is you keep the duration brief while you gradually increase intensity. And that way it makes it safe for everyone. But how are you going to challenge your heart and lungs sufficiently if you're deconditioned? So that's how we learned to put all these exercises together. So what we do is we work one muscle group and then the next muscle group and the next muscle group in a specific sequence that we call muscle sequencing, so that you can challenge your heart and lung without fatiguing an individual muscle. And in that way, you also challenge your metabolic rate, and challenging your metabolic rate is what causes the weight loss, the burning off of the fat. I think we made a mistake in focusing so much on weight loss, because weight loss is really a composite number. When you lose weight, you could be losing fat, you could be losing muscle, you could be losing bone density, you could be losing internal organ weight, you could be losing water weight. All of those would be registered on the scale as losing weight, but they're not the same. All pounds are not created equal. You want to burn off that which you don't need. And in this case, the fat is disease producing. You really should be focused on fat loss instead of weight loss. We can measure that, and that's what we do with our PACE exercise program. Instead of encouraging people to get on the scale and track their weight, we're encouraging them to use our calipers that you get with the program so that you can measure your fat. Because if you focus specifically on fat loss, it is much more sustainable. Why is that true? Well, Remember I said that if you're losing weight, it can be bone, it can be organ weight, it can be water, or it can be muscle. What happens if you burn off muscle during exercise, which is exactly what happens with durational? Remember, if you do duration, you have to be efficient, so you downsize, including burning off muscle. You can go further with a smaller engine, so you downsize your muscle mass so that you're more efficient for that duration. But think about what that's doing. Your muscle is the primary engine that burns calories. If you're shrinking it, you're kind of painting yourself in the corner as you lose weight. Because as you lose weight, you shrink the engine that is burning calories. So it's inevitable that it becomes more and more difficult. And what happens should you stop that exercise? Now you have a small calorie burning machine, smaller than you started with. So if you return to eating the way you were before, you'll put on more fat than you started with, which is that cycle that we see so commonly. People try to lose weight, they diet down, they gain all the weight back. Measuring your body fat is actually something very easy. We've taught thousands of people how to do it, and they do it at home. We use a set of calipers, and we give you instructions. You will use 3 different body sites and measure your what we call subcutaneous body fat with little pinchers. You then put that on a table, and it tells you what your body fat is. One of the best studies that proves that durational, exertional kind of activity is not as efficient to burn fat as shorter bursts was done at Laval University. The study design was very simple. They took exercises and they divided them into 2 groups. One group did 45 minutes of continuous duration. The other group did short little bursts of 15 seconds to 90 seconds on a bicycle. And then they looked at how much energy they burned during the exercise. Turns out the durational group, the 45 minutes continuous, burned twice as many calories as the short little 15 to 90 second bursts. So everyone would expect that the durational group would lose more body fat. But when they took body fat measurements after the exercise program, they found that the short little bursts had burned off a lot more fat. As a matter of fact, when they calculated the amount of fat burned per calorie burned during exercise, they found that the short little burst burned 9 times more body fat. That was the exciting part. It proves that you can be more efficient at getting rid of body fat and doing short little bursts of exertion. So it seems to defy physics if you're going to burn more body fat even though you've burned fewer calories during exertion. But the reason that happens is because of what we call the afterburn. You don't just burn calories during your exercise, but the more important part is what you burn during your rest. If you give yourself a short little burst, your body gets the message that it needs to store energy immediately available for those short little bursts to prepare you for the next time you encounter that same activity, especially if you do that repeatedly. Your body gets the message that it needs to have energy fast. How does it do it? It has to store energy then in the muscle. And storing energy in the muscle is very desirable for a lot of reasons. For one thing, when you have your energy stored in the muscle, you feel it. Because that energy is instantaneously available, you feel more energetic. Fat, remember, is a very slow burn fuel. That's why they tell you you have to exercise for 20 minutes or so to burn fat, because it takes that long to gear up fat burning. You have to burn it a little bit at a time as you break down the fat. But when you store energy in muscle, it's available in an instant. So it makes you feel more energetic. That's a wonderful side effect of doing the PACE program. As people come alive, they become more animated. They tell us that they have more energy than they had since they were children. Because as you age, you store more and more of your calories as fat. As you convert your body to burning fat, you feel lethargic, you feel tired, because that fat fuel is not very easy to get out. You have to work at it. You got to use your strength of will, and you feel it. You feel that lack of energy. We made a mistake of thinking that the benefit of the exercise occurred during the exercise, but all the important benefit of exercise occurs while you rest. What the exercise has to do is reprogram the changes that you're going to make to your body while you rest. So this reprogramming your body actually turns out to make it much easier. You don't have to burn off that 30 pounds of fat while you are exercising. You just have to key in the program changes that tells your body that it doesn't need the fat, and PACE is scientifically designed to do exactly that.